Before we begin, I would like to say that the links to the stories will be in the description below if you want to read along with me. With that being said, let's begin. Number 1. This did not happen directly to me, though I was in the home when it happened. The witness to all this is my older sister Tori. Around 1999, my sister and her friend Chrissy were 16, and Chrissy had just gotten her license. They had been out joyriding in Chrissy's DeVille. We lived in a newer development in a pretty rural area, so there wasn't much else to do for fun. When they got back to our neighborhood, it was already dark. Chrissy lived about half a block away, and so she was going to drop off Tori before heading home. The house we lived in had a large patio extended from the front of the house, with trees along either side blocking the view of the driveway. Chrissy stopped the car in front of the driveway, and Tori was about to get out of the car when Chrissy grabbed her arm. Tori looked back and saw a look of fear on Chrissy's face. She turned back towards the house to see what caused this reaction, and saw a figure crouched in the shadows between the parked cars. Looking back at them was a man in all black. He wore a black long-sleeve shirt, black pants, and, most frighteningly, a black ski mask. He was also completely barefoot. As he made eye contact with the girls, he raised his fingers to his lips as a gesture to shush. Tori slammed the door shut and they raced to Christy's house, where her father called the police and my father. No trace of the man was ever found. What really frightens me about this occurrence is that my parents, myself, and my younger sister were all home at the time. I don't know if this man had any weapons, or if he would have moved along when he realized the house was occupied, but I'm glad my sister came home when she did. And creepy, barefoot shushing man, let's not meet. Number 2. This incident occurred a few years ago, and I'm still amazed by my absolute naivety at the time. It was a typically dull night in the suburbs of England, and myself and my best friend decided to go to a nightclub a few towns over. There was really nothing else to do at the time. As per usual, we had a few too many drinks, and by the end of the night, neither of us knew our ass from our elbow. A very smart state to be in for two 20-year-old petite gals out alone. But it's life. Anyway, my friend made very good friends with some guy that night. I myself was really upset about a relationship gone wrong, and not in the mood for hooking up with some random dude from a bar. However, we stuck together, more or less, for most of the night. The perpetual third wheel. By 3 a.m., the club had to shut their doors, and with no trams running, and no money to fund my own taxi home, I agreed to split a taxi with my friend and her new acquaintance. We clamber into the first one we see at the taxi rank, stupidly not checking to see if it's a company we recognize, or even a licensed one. The ride begins without hitch. We discuss sleeping arrangements for the night. I live a 15-minute walk from my friend, and though she offers me her sofa, I insist I can walk home from hers without any trouble. Another idiotic assumption. But I was tired, upset, drunk, and just wanted to wake up in my own bed. We got to hers, paid the driver, and huddled on her porch for a quick smoke. As I bid farewell and start walking home, I realize the taxi driver is idling in the street a few houses down. I shrug it off, believing he's either checking his sat-nav or taking a call for another ride. As I walk by, however, the window quickly winds down. "Hey, darling," he calls. I jump and nervously wave a weak hello to him. "You say you live very near. I gave you a ride for free." I politely decline and say I'm fine to walk, but he starts insisting. "No, a girl like you will not walk alone at this time. Please, you say you live near?" Please, I give for free. Cautionary tales briefly flicker through my mind, but in my exhausted and inebriated state, I thank him and approach the taxi. Perhaps he's a very generous and thoughtful taxi driver. Another stupid decision. As I go to open the back doors, he tells me to sit in the front because it's more comfortable, more room up here. And yes, I foolishly take my seat next to his. And yes, if I was in a horror movie, I'd be the first to die. I tell him my address, and the ride again begins innocently enough. For a minute. The route to my house should be simple enough after all, but before I know it, he suddenly veers into a small side street that goes in the complete opposite direction. At this point, my palms descend into full-on sweat mode, and my heart starts to beat like a bongo. We've all heard the horror stories, but this doesn't happen to me, right? I tell him that I don't think he's going the right way. No response. I then demand, much more firmly, to know where we're going, but my voice seemed like a squeak. To my surprise, though, he then slows down the car to a halt. But it's then I hear the audible click of the car lock. If I gave him an ounce of credit before, it's all wiped out by now. And my mind and body are obviously telling me I'm in big danger. He looks at me much too thoughtfully. Look at you. You're so sad, but so beautiful. Why is this? I'm speechless. Your friend. She leave you, yes? That boy with her. He doesn't choose you? He doesn't choose you over her? At this point, I am completely frozen in my seat. I have never been so completely frozen through fear. Any rational thought is not in my mind. He continues, "You're too sexy to go home alone. I will take you back with me. I will appreciate you, not like him. You're too sexy." I sat a few frozen seconds more, then suddenly heard a guttural "fuck off" come from somewhere in my voice, still in my seat. He then slyly tells me, "Okay, I let you off if you kiss me like a good girl." At this moment, he quickly slides his hand between my legs and leans forward, and it's now that I finally scram for the door lock. He very suddenly turns back and starts the car up, but luckily, due to the slow starting pace, I'm able to open the door and stumble out into the road. I had my bagger on my front, thankfully. I sprinted for my life down the road, and wound my way a few side roads that I knew before I hid behind some industrial bins. When I eventually stumbled home, massively shaken up, I'd like to note my mom was amazing and looked after me. I realize this isn't as horrific as the spine-chilling tales that I so love to read on here, but it was a terrifying realization on how violations can arise when you least expect it. So, creepy taxi dude, let's not meet again. More importantly, everybody, please try your best to pre-book a taxi, or at the very least, check their license plate or note down their plate. Number 3. I've never been motivated enough to post anything until I came across this subreddit. First time posting, horrible with grammar, so please call me out on my shit. I'm a very detailed writer, so it's gonna be a long one. Let me start out by saying I'm a 5-foot fuck-all female. I have a baby face that gives the illusion of sweet innocence. Mostly, forever looking like a preteen is advantageous. Sometimes, though, it makes me look like an easy target. This is the first of many encounters I have unfortunately had, and the one that sticks out the most. I was 17, mid-20s now. I worked at a local grocery store in a small, mundane town. Being a high school student, I worked evenings and got out around 10:30 at night. I walked home alone every single night, and I'd worked there since I was 15. It was my area, where I grew up, so I never had any fear. Thankfully though, I was still alert. Anyway, on this night, I was about halfway home, passing my local 24-hour convenience store. I always become more alert after this point, because until then, I was walking on well-lit main roads, and I can probably motivate my stubby little legs to sprint to the store if anything happened. After that, it's small residential roads with many dark places to hide, for myself or murderers. I walked past the store and noticed a few cars parked outside. Nothing out of the ordinary. I crossed the street and descended into the dark residential area. It's worth noting that not many cars really drive down those streets, especially this late at night. As I'm walking, I see two really bright lights roll up behind me. Obviously a car, and honestly not super strange at this point. I keep walking, but I turn my head to try and see what the car looked like, or who might be inside. I can't see shit because this car's lights are super bright. I speed up a little, but this car keeps slowly following behind, creeping closer and closer. I am full on shitting myself at this point, but I don't quite break into a run because it's still a ways to my house, and the car could easily catch up to me. This may seem stupid, but I watched a lot of animal nature shows, and the one thing they always say is a trademark of prey is running. I guess I thought if I walked confidently enough, it would scare them off. At any rate, there was a corner coming up onto a very small road that leads to the street I live on, so I decide not to go into full-blown panic mode unless the car follows me down this street. I quicken my pace, turn the corner, and look back. The lights are finally out of my eyes, and I can sort of see in the car. It had stopped where I had turned. I absolutely shit myself because I remember seeing that car parked at the convenience store, and in my absolute horror, the car slowly starts to turn the corner. I freak out and scramble to find my phone, but I fucking forgot it at work like a moron. So I pull out my iPod Touch and pretend it's a phone to at least make it seem like I'm talking to someone. I turn around, iPod to ear, and look this car dead in the windshield, light still blinding, and throw it the dirtiest look ever while breaking into a slight jog. I hear the window go down, and this motherfucker starts cooing at me, like some really lifelike dove noises, and I just fucking book it. I hear the car speed up behind me, and as soon as I round the corner to get onto my street, I dive into one of my neighbor's bushes, because I knew I wouldn't be able to make it to my house before the car caught up. I sat and waited. The car came slowly around the corner and stops just ahead of the place I was hiding, and continues cooing. Like, fuck this guy. I was so prepared to sit there for the whole night because I was pretty convinced they didn't know I was there. A couple of tense minutes roll by, and the car just suddenly takes off. Never have I ever been so relieved. It was dark, so I didn't catch the license plate numbers, and the worst part about it was I saw the car switch off its high beams. All I could think was they must have been turned on to purposely blind me. I stayed hidden for a bit because I'm afraid the car is lurking somewhere. Adrenaline eventually took over though, and I just started sprinting home. I got in the house and just started bawling my eyes out. I was absolutely inconsolable, hyperventilating, full body shakes, dry heaving, the whole 9 yards. I had never been so afraid for my life, and it wasn't until I got home that I fully started to register that fear. It was just my poor 15-year-old brother who was home, and he had no idea what to do. After I had calmed down, I called the police, but nothing happened. I didn't have a very good description of the car besides its color and make, and never saw who was driving it. The most horrifying part about this story isn't what happened to me though. The reason why this sticks out in my head is because, not a month later, a young girl who was very drunk was snatched from the side of the road about 10 blocks from where I had been walking. The guy took her and raped her for 3 days in his basement. but she managed to escape. The house she was being kept in was abandoned, and the guy was never caught. There is no way to know for sure it was related, but I shudder to think what might have happened had I not dove into that bush and been super alert to what was going on that night. So very long story short, creepy cooing fuck in the blue car, let's never meet again. Thanks for listening to another 3 True Scary Stories from Reddit. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and also subscribe for future content. Until next time, have a great day everybody, and as always, stay safe.